Welcome back, Wealth Witches. And we're going to be talking all about optimizing your business. If you've ever wished that being a business owner came with a starter pack, here we are. So once you get into business and you get going, you're like, okay, what am I doing? What should I not be doing? You probably want to know how to save on costs without sacrificing your business operations, where to look to outsource or like what to outsource versus what to handle yourself. We're going to have a little bit of sass about the profit first structure and some thoughts that I have about it. And then we're going to close out with how to pay yourself enough and more so that you can run the business and the life of your dreams. So without further ado, we're going to start on how to save costs without sacrificing the way your business runs. Now, this might be a little counterintuitive for people, but generally, especially the first few years in your business, and honestly, I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and it still gets me every now and then. Shiny object syndrome is one of the biggest things. I think a lot of business owners tend to be neurodivergent, whether they're diagnosed or not. I think it lends itself really well to being an entrepreneur or being self-employed. And what that means is it can be really, sorry, I have a hair. There we go. It can be really easy to get distracted. Case in point, especially by something that like you think you need, you think it's going to have the answer, you think it's going to take care of whatever. And I've been there, right? You just want like someone to wave a magic wand, tell you exactly what you need to do to have a successful business, to not burn out, all the things. One of the biggest things that I want to recommend you look at is not buying every little thing that comes across and getting really comfortable with the inner knowing or your intuition and being able to discern that from like imposter syndrome, because you probably got into business in an arena that is something you're good at. You may not be great at being a business owner yet, right? But you should be really good at what you're providing. That's the whole reason normally that like you do it. Like I'm really great at what I do. Doesn't mean that I've always been great at hiring or I've always been great at leading or I've always been great at managing, to keep on track of all of our accounting. Yes, even me, sometimes I get behind on bookkeeping. Shocker. But instead of looking to the next thing that you need to buy, can we take a second to step back? Do you actually have the time to buy that thing? And I actually walked a client through this the other day. So she was looking at a mentorship, and financially, she can absolutely afford the mentorship. I'm not concerned about it there. Like she has the money in her bank account and she's done a mentorship with this person before. She knows that she works well with them. She knows that she got value out of it. But the thought process that I walked her through, and this is the same thought process that I walked myself through after, frankly, buying way too many things that I didn't take the time to learn. Does that mean that those programs or courses or the coaching aren't valuable? Absolutely not. And I know that sometimes people will kind of shit on service providers, right? Like, I bought this and I didn't get anything out of it. Did you take the time to actually like participate, learn the materials, show up? Or did you buy it because it sounded really great and it was going to be a fix, and then you didn't actually have the time, you didn't actually make it a priority, and so maybe you got subpar results? And don't get me wrong, there are, I'm sure, crappy service providers out there. But so what I walked her through was, you have the money for this. It's not an issue of that. What are you hoping to gain from this? What will it do to advance your business? And the question she had was, basically she was going to still have support for what she was actually hoping to get from this. So we're like, okay, the next thing is, while this is set to run, do you have the time and the energy to devote to making the most of this? And the most of this might look different, right? Maybe for her, the most of it looks like a 2-hour commitment a week. Maybe it looks like 5 to 10 hours, right? But she's worked with this person before. She knows what that could look like. And then the final question, we didn't ask her this because she sort of figured out what her answer was. The final question is this what you need? And this actually segues really nice into our next topic. Do you need another course? Do you need another training? Or do you need to outsource or hire someone? And that was a distinction that I had to make probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I had bought, like I said, been there, done that. I had bought course after course after course because I didn't have the extra funds, or I didn't think that I should be bringing in people. I needed to know how to do it all. Until I stopped going through the courses, until I started feeling a little resentful for this money that I'd spent for something that I wasn't using. And then again, upon some self-reflection, I was like, these courses are fine. It's a me problem. I've gotten to a point in my business where I don't want to take the time to learn how to do every minute thing in my business, especially the things that I'm not good at or I'm not interested in learning to be good at, such as tech VA work. It's valuable. It is super, super valuable. No desire to learn how to do it. And so one of my first hires way back when was a tech VA, actually a regular VA and then a tech VA. And that tech VA happened to be a fraction of the cost of what my hourly was that I was billing. But even if they hadn't been, because I've hired contractors that are more than my quote hourly, does it free me up to do more of what I want to do? Does it allow me to sell? And I started doing this mastermind when I had a tech VA. And they help with the sales page. They make sure all the automations work. They make sure the coupon codes are working. They get all of that to set up and chatting and talking. I probably wouldn't have launched, or it would have been a really poor program presentation, in all honesty. And we're not doing anything in, crazy out of the blue here. It is, you're getting value, you're getting support, you're getting content, you're getting trainings, but tech VA stuff is not my aptitude, not my sphere of genius. And so hiring that out not only took a lot of anxiety off of my plate, but allowed me to have the time to bring in more kick-ass business owners to learn from that. And that's when I started to kind of have this realization that in general, I didn't want to be learning. I hit a point in my business where DIYing everything wasn't where I wanted to be. And instead, it was the question of, do I want to buy this course and learn this, or do I need to look to bring in a coach or an expert or a contractor in this area? So something to be thinking about. Again, one of the really good ways to save costs here, avoid shiny object syndrome. And maybe this is what I did for myself. I told myself I couldn't buy another course or another program or another whatever until I'd gotten through and at least reviewed everything else that I'd bought and not finished. I still haven't finished all of the things that I bought, and this has been years. So again, I will hire coaching. I will hire a specialist. I will bring in a team member. And now that we have team members, there are absolutely areas that I'll bring or purchase educational content for a team member. Maybe we have someone in sales and they're working on enhancing their copywriting skills or their personal relation skills or something else. Like, no issue doing education, but we're looking at it a little bit differently now that we have a team. So when it comes to outsourcing, we are looking, can you afford it? Does paying for it free you up mentally, time-wise, anxiety-wise, etc.? Does it allow you to bring in more revenue because you're not spending 8 hours doing something that it would take someone an hour to do? Been there, done that. If so, maybe we trial run it. And the thing is, I think a lot of people think that you have to do some huge commitment. I think I brought my first VA on for like $300 a month. It was a limited amount of hours, but it was enough that I could start getting some help. I could figure out like how I wanted to outsource, what I wanted to outsource. And you can outsource all sorts of things. You can outsource your bookkeeping, hello, your accounting, your taxes. You can outsource social media. You can outsource graphic design. You can outsource tech VA. But something to think about, do you need help on the home front? And this is something that we do seasonally as well at home. So shocker, our busy season is like January through April. We make sure that we have additional help when it comes to meals. And we, meaning David and myself, because he gets really busy. I get really busy. And for us, we have a housekeeper that comes 1 or 2 times a month. Huge help. We have meals that we order in during that time. We do like a meal prep service. We don't do it the rest of the year. We do it during that time of year. And also there are times where like we'll bump our housekeeper up a little bit. When we lived in town, I had a personal assistant 1 day a week. She would like do all that, do Amazon or package returns. She'd make doctor's appointments. She'd run to the post office. She'd do a little bit of light meal prep where we live now. That's just unfortunately not something that we have. But be thinking like when you're looking to outsource, it doesn't have to just be in the business. The beautiful thing about it being in the business is it's a write-off, which we love. But sometimes, especially in the beginning stages of your business, or if you're pivoting or doing a new service offering, it can require a lot of you. And you can't necessarily, in my opinion, always outsource that. So what else do you have? Like, what's a list? And you can literally make a list of all the things you do in a day or a week, drop them into ChatGPT and like, hey, what can I outsource here? Like, where would you start? What would free up time? And also, like, what do you not like doing? So you don't have to just outsource business things. You can look at getting some help on the personal side. And again, it doesn't have to be year round. It can be seasonal. It can be temporary. It can be a trial run. Now, we're going to move into the profit first side of things. And so profit first, I think it is excellent in like the premise is excellent. I have seen three people, I think, execute it. For anyone that doesn't know, profit first essentially says that, like, one, you should be prioritizing like paying yourself, setting aside profit. And it does a really nice job of laying out like taxes, savings, owner's compensation, expenses, etc. And there's these multiple checking accounts. And you're supposed to go allocate all of this over. So in an ideal world, that is great. Okay. Problem is, a lot of clients or people that we have worked with that are interested in profit first are interested because they have anxiety or some chaos, or they want to feel in control when it comes to their finances. This is a really good, it appeals to someone that wants to feel in control. The problem is, if you don't already have money that you're setting aside that equals these percentages, chances are you don't actually have that money available to fit the parameters that profit first lays out. And so what I see happening really frequently is someone goes and they open like 5 checking accounts and a savings account or whatever at their bank. They get charged a $10 or a $15 fee every month for each of those accounts if they don't have the minimum balance in them. And they spend time every week moving money over based on the percentages to each of those accounts. Then what happens? You don't actually have that money to move over because you don't actually have that money available each month. So then you have to go move it back. And not only does that destroy some of your confidence, it causes a ton of bookkeeping transactions that are unnecessary. And if you're doing your own books, it can cause a lot of errors. I cannot tell you the number of clients that we've looked at who have been or had tried profit first. And again, I'm not shaming you in the slightest. It's a great premise. I think that the businesses that it appeal to are generally not ready for it. So a couple of things. One, we've been working with Relay Bank for the last 3-ish months. We actually moved our company accounts over there. I've been really impressed. I hate to even say this, but they do work with the profit first setup. And it's really cool. You can like automate the percentages, the timing, like it takes a lot of the legwork out of it. And then you can have up to 20 checking accounts. Please don't have 20 checking accounts for your business, but you can have up to 20. There's no fees. It's online. It connects to Xero. It connects to QuickBooks. It's delightful. Instead of going full speed ahead on profit first, you're like, yeah, I really love this. I would like to make a suggestion that you have a checking, you have a savings, you have a credit card for your business, and you have your personal accounts. So instead of moving money to all of these different accounts all the time, your checking account is your income account. Your expenses, for the most part, fall on your credit card. Your savings account is your tax, profit, emergency fund, etc. And your percentages can start small. Because again, if you haven't been saving enough, we talk about this with retirement, we talk about this with goals, we talk about this with savings. If you haven't been saving $400 a month and you're like, this is going to be the month, I'm going to max out my retirement this year. Why don't we start with like $25 or $50 first? Because again, if that money hasn't been just piling up somewhere, then obviously you've been spending it or doing something with it each month. So you, even though like on paper you might have it, in practice, in reality, you haven't had it. So instead, all of your income comes into your checking account for the business. All of your expenses that you can go on the credit card, you pay that off. You pay it. You can pay your credit card every day if you wanted to. Also, I wouldn't pay it more than like once a week. Again, it creates a lot of unnecessary transactions. You can also pay it once a month. And then your savings account for the business is the tax fund, the profit fund, etc. You can start with smaller percentages. And then when you go to pay yourself out of that checking account to your personal checking account and take it slow. Work up to it, because what's on paper, again, if it hasn't been in practice, It's going to be kind of a difficult transition potentially, right? And I want you to take baby steps and to build confidence, not to feel like you're backsliding. So again, the other thing to consider that I really think, and I need to go reread it and see if they put an update out, because in my opinion, when profit first really starts to make sense for a lot of people is also when an S election can start to make sense. And the way that they have like owner's pay and taxes set up is a little convoluted because it doesn't account for payroll in quite the same way. So just all things to consider. We're familiar with it. The banking option, like I said, Relay is a really great option for it, even if you want to do what I call like my lazy profit first. We're all about lazy girl accounting here. Like, how can we make this simple and how can we make this work for ourselves? Which segues really well into how to pay yourself enough to run the life and business of your dreams. And we do a training on this every so often because I think it's really important. And it's also really helpful if you're looking to pivot, to change your lifestyle, to buy a house, etc. I'm not a big fan of budgets, but if you don't know what your approximate household expenses are, this is a really good exercise. Take whatever you're responsible for, right? You might have joint finances, you might have solo finances, you might have a roommate situation, whatever you're responsible each month. Go through the last at least 3 months of your expenses and add them up for your personal side of things. And that should be, groceries, rent, a mortgage, insurance, health insurance, car insurance, etc. Add it all up. Check to see if there's anything big missing there. Because a lot of times, like car insurance, you might pay every 6 months. Maybe it didn't fall in the last 3 months. Add that in if so, and then multiply it by 1.2. This adds a 20% buffer in for incidentals. Like if we forgot insurance, like if we go shopping, like if we have a girls trip for the weekend or something. All of that gets added up. So we're going to say that it was $5,000 was your original number. That's how much on average you spend per month. Multiply that times 1.2. That number is $6,000. So we're going to say that to be safe, you need to be bringing home $6,000 every month from your business to provide for your life. I like to reverse engineer that. So again, if it's $6,000, as a good rule of thumb, this can vary dramatically. Multiply that by 2. So 6,000 times 2 is 12,000. That is how much, that's a good starting point rule of thumb for how much your business should be bringing in every month on average so that you can take home 6,000 because that's you taking home 50% of your profits. The other 50% is for taxes and business expenses. That's pretty realistic for most of the businesses that we work with. Some businesses have higher profit than that and take home more, which means they can make a little less per month and still bring home that $6,000 number. Some businesses are a little bit lower than that, but in general, it's a really good spot to be striving for about a 50% take home. So if you're looking at that and you're like, okay. And again, this is good to future forecast, right? Maybe you've been living on $3,000 a month and you're like, you know what? I really want to do retirement. I want to pay off some debt. I want XYZ. That can let you go. So okay, $3,000 multiplied times 1.2. We're actually going to do the math here for a second. It's $3,600. So times 2, $7,200. So, okay, to afford my current bills, $7,200 a month, maybe you've been doing that. But you're like, you know what? I really would like another $1,000 a month that I can be putting towards debt payoff or putting towards a down payment for a house or putting towards retirement or some combination. So instead of $3,000, it's $4,000 a month that you're wanting to take home. 1.2 to add that buffer. So that's $4,800 times 2 means you need to be bringing $9,600 a month in, which is $2,400 more than you have been bringing in. So then it starts what do I need to be changing? Do my prices need to go up? Do my packages need to change? Do I have a different offering that I could be putting out? And maybe it's some combination of all of those, right? Maybe you haven't increased prices in 3 years and you've only continued to level up and gain more expertise and provide more value. That could be one thing. Maybe you have always wanted to mentor or do a group thing. Cool. But what I would do here is I would take whatever sells the best. For example, we know what our bread and butter is. And so I've watched, I always give the example of, I worked with a swimsuit manufacturer for a while, and she was great. And one year I used to do production management in addition to bookkeeping and accounting. And one year we were chatting and she's like, yeah, I'm going to discontinue this style. I'm over it. It's boring. It's not selling well. We've had it for 10 years. I went and I pulled the data. Not only was that her best selling style every year, it sold more than double the next bestseller. But because it sold so much, it was cheaper to manufacture because she got better rates on fabric and better rates from the manufacturers, the sewing company that she was using. They were able to give her a slightly decreased price to actually make the garments. And because of that, it was one of her highest profit items as well. And so she felt like it was really stale. But when you took a second to go look at the numbers, it was very clear that that was a no-brainer. And there were actually 2 other styles that I recommended that she dropped that were expensive, that didn't sell well, that just really mucked up what she was doing. And so I recommend you do that in your business too. She actually rolled out a couple of new colors in that bestseller. Like it did really well for her. And she had no idea because she was just going off of gut feeling instead of data. So where can you take data to look at what sells the best, what your best performing package is, what you like doing the most, and what's the most profitable? And then where can you do more of that? Or where can you, provide additional value to those clients to then meet your updated income goal? The only other thing that I did want to add for how to reduce costs, I recommend every 3 to 6 months looking at your subscriptions, both personally, but especially for the business. I was actually just talking with someone about this last night. It's so easy. We're totally guilty of it too, to sign up for something, or especially as you start growing a team, to get into something and then realize you haven't used this, or you have a software that replaced it, or the free trial ran out. Which reminds me, I actually have a free trial that I signed up for yesterday that I need to go cancel. I know exactly what it was. Okay. See, told you it happens. But if you don't go pull it and look at it, the other thing that we do now that we have a team, I don't necessarily use every software that we have. And so when I go through and I do my check on it, I'm also checking licenses. I'll use Loom as an example. Loom, a few of our team members have the free version of because they don't need the paid version. And so when I go check software subscriptions, I'll pull up who has access to each of these paid items. Hey, confirming that you're still using this. If not, let me know. We can bump you to a free version or we can remove you completely. But that's a really big area where expenses can just exponentially grow without you realizing it. So that is really like the business owner starter pack. That's the rundown on this. How are you pricing for profit? How are you supporting your lifestyle? When do you start looking to outsource? How do you decide what to outsource? So let me know if you have any questions about any of these topics that we covered.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Wealth Witches podcast. I hope our magical money talks have left you feeling empowered and inspired. Remember, wealth isn't just about dollars in the bank, it's about abundance and financial freedom in all aspects of your life. I'm Katelyn Magnuson, encouraging you to keep challenging the status quo and embrace your inner witch on this financial journey. Until next time, stay magical.